Alright, say what you want about the bad guy in this movie, but you gotta admit, he kinda had a banger playlist. Like if I were to go to a nightclub and that guy was DJing, I would be there. I would turn up. I would party with him. But then again, he probably would get me to take a whole lot of narcotic drugs. But you know what? Hey, catch me turning up at the emergency exit. So Silent Night is a brand new action thriller directed by John Woo, and it stars Joel Kinnaman, Kid Cudi, and Catalina Cedino Moreno. After the death of his son from a gang shootout and recovering from a wound that cost him his voice, he soon embarks on a bloody and grueling quest to punish those responsible. Honestly, I don't even remember the guy's name, and quite frankly, I don't care. Now, before I get into the problems with this movie, let me talk about the two good things that I did like. And the first thing is the action. I thought the action was pretty solid in here. Before I went into this movie, I knew that this was directed by John Woo. And I told myself that even if this movie ends up having a terrible story and a terrible execution, at least the action will stand out. There are some memorable scenes and some very well executed choreography in this movie, and I gotta give credit where credit is due. There is a one-shot scene that takes place in the stairwell, and I thought that was really nice. If you know me, you know I am a sucker for one-shots, and I thought that was hot. I would not say that the action scenes are on the same level as John Wick, but in here, they are good. Not John Wick good, but they're good. But overall, the action in here is pretty satisfying. Out of all the action I've seen John Woo do in some of the movies that I've seen from him, I think his predecessor films handled the action better, but with Silent Night, I will give credit where credit is due. And Joel Kinnaman, I thought he was good in this movie. To portray someone who literally lost their voice and just goes on this raging rampage, taking vengeance on those that killed his son, and conveying all those emotions through facial expressions and eye contact, I thought Joel Kinnaman handled that part really well. I can imagine how having no dialogue really put a lot of pressure on him and him portraying this character, but I thought Joel Kinnaman really knocked it out of the park, and I gotta give him props on that. Despite the action and Joel Kinnaman's dedication to the role, this movie is kind of bland. And I really hate to say that because this is the John Woo movie, and I really, really wanted to like this movie. But I found myself kind of bored at times. And when I say bored, I mean as far as the journey getting from point A to point B. Yeah, there are moments in there that I like some of that John Woo action magic and I guess intense moments with John Kinnaman's character. But everything else, what are we doing? It was like nothing was happening. You know what I mean? The journey from point A to point B was the equivalent of driving 50 miles straight and there is not a sight of civilization anywhere. Like, it's just boring. Just plain grass, corn, whatever you want to call it. It's nothing. And I feel like the lack of dialogue kind of ruined the experience. Now look, in the case of John Kinnaman's character, it makes sense why his character is silent because he lost his vocal cords, right? But why were the other characters silent? What was their reason for being quiet? You know what I mean? Like, for example, Kid Cudi's character, who plays a detective, this guy had no dialogue whatsoever. Why was he silent? And even in the final act, when Joel Kinnaman's character and Kid Cudi's character team up in the end, there's no dialogue. Why didn't Kid Cudi's character say anything? It's not like, you know, Joel's character is deaf. He can clearly hear. Why couldn't you just say what you wanted to say? Like, I don't understand why you were silent. And this movie tried to make it seem like they had some type of tight bond when really they didn't even interact before the final act, which is like, what? At the beginning of this movie, I was expecting them to have like this Batman and Commissioner Gordon type relationship, but no, it's just two random strangers who happen to be in the same situation. And what a waste of Kid Cudi. Look, man, with what Kid Cudi has been doing with his acting chops, with what he did in Don't Look Up and X, and most importantly, Intergalactic, I want to see more of Kid Cudi. And when I first found out he was in the movie, I got excited. And I walked out of the movie, I was disappointed because the guy did nothing. No dialogue, no cool action moment. Well, there was one moment he had that was kind of cool. But for the most part, the guy had no reason to be there. This movie in no way, shape, or form highlights the versatile talents of Kid Cudi. And this movie makes Joel and Kid Cudi's character make some very dumb choices in the final act. It was so dumb that I was sitting there like, why would you do that? And the ending. This ending is bad. It is bad. And without going into spoilers, with how the movie ends, Joel Kinnaman's character, you did more harm than good for your wife. I mean, yeah, you got the job done, but at what cost? Like, bro think he John Wick. But Silent Night, it's just one of those movies that you would play in the background while you and your girl are getting it on. And that's all we'll ever be. So, plugging Silent Night into the rank system, I am placing this one into the negative zone. But yeah, that is pretty much my review for Silent Night. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought about Silent Night. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What is your favorite John Woo movie? Is it not this? Whatever you thought, let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, guys, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I will see you all in the next one.
After working up the nerve almost equal in size, I walked around with the iron for any wrinkle in time. I paid a piece of my mind for every nickel and dime, but never less than a 5 and never slept on a job. A killer crept on your squad, yet never left the garage. When your God was close enough to see the flesh of his eyes. Get to the button and press, it's what the message advised. What's a threat behind the vest is where the testament lies.